first episode of the Sour Grape Show. This will be a weekly conversational podcast about games. We were going to just kind of jump in with some introductions, talk a little bit about it's the new year. We're going to talk some resolutions. We're going to kind of introduce ourselves as far as games we really like, series we really like, and series that haven't clicked with us. Maybe we think there's a chance they might eventually and they just haven't yet, or we just hate them one way or another. Popular series that are like critically acclaimed, have mass appeal. But we were kind of brainstorming in our local Coney Island.
I don't think people know.
Coney Island is
like Greasy Spoon.
Greasy Spoon diner joint here in Metro Detroit land. And a woman, a little older than us, just really laid into us about talking about video games for 5 minutes.
I'm never talking about video games in public again.
She really wasn't having it.
She was like, "What are you guys doing with your lives?"
Yeah, she told us
she told us to get a life
and good luck catching a wife.
Catching a wife and beards too.
And beards too.
So I don't know about you guys, but that's the first time like the stigma of playing video games, like this taboo thing, has ever. Like, I've never been
broached in public.
Yeah. I've never been criticized.
I mean, like, there's been some, like, off comments, but never, like...
Usually, like, a silent judgment, maybe.
Right. Well, I'm at work. I'll be like, I'm going to go home and play some games. And, like, I guess you don't have anything better to do. And, like, that's it. And it's usually pretty harmless.
But it's not care. Right.
Definitely some, like, people in my family that are a generation or two older than me, like, they're like, oh, you still...
It's a generational thing, for sure. The taboo has definitely, I think, been lifted more than ever now that, I mean, everybody around our age is... At least played like a few games, right?
Right, and they understand that a lot of people do, and they enjoy them.
And it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, because I think like our age, we're all in our late 20s here.
Yes,
give or take,
give or take a year or two. But like I think our age people, it's almost as accepted as like going to the movie or
maybe
watching...
not to the obsessive degree that we do, but
I think everybody at least has a game they played when they were a kid or a series that they like.
Like, could you imagine if she knew we were going to try and do a podcast about games?
She'd be pissed if she knew there was podcasts about games.
I was about to tell her, get her feedback, like, how are we doing so far? You said you listened for 5 minutes. Can you give us some feedback?
We're new at this. We're trying it out, and like we could really use... That was not a good first impression.
I think she would have given us 2 stars.
Pretty disheartening.
At the most. That might have been like a 1.5.
If we would shave, we'd probably get a bump.
Yeah, she was really upset we have beards. We all have beards. And
it's like she's never run across a millennial in the last 10 years.
Well, a lot of millennials don't eat at Coney Island. We're
a bunch of old souls.
As we realize today.
We got to get back on that millennial horse of taking down these like chain restaurants. You know? We got to...
You got to find our own local
back to the mom and pops.
They had
we just got to start
there.
a restaurant.
It'll be called Games.
Yeah, she kind of, for those listening that know of the Allen Iverson playoff, or no, not playoffs, that's practice.
Yeah, it was during a post game.
Yeah, where they were complaining about him not going to practice. She said games like 13 and a half times in the 2 minutes she yelled at us. Games?
You talk about games?
You guys are talking about games? Catch a wife.
Yeah, she said her amazing line and then left Coney Island in disgust. We don't know if she had ordered food.
I think she just sat there, listened to us for 5 minutes, and said, "I can't do this."
So we ruined her Sunday.
She ruined ours. I'm feeling pretty sad.
She made my Sunday. That was the most amazing thing.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Bunch of weirdos, as she put it.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was like, "You guys are a bunch of weirdos," and then Ed dropped the killer. Likewise, lady.
likewise. I didn't know what
to say. Did you say likewise or likewise, lady?
I said likewise like 3 times. I just was petrified.
Lady,
I didn't know what else to do. Yeah, she freaked me out, and then I figured that was gonna be it, but she went on for like 2 minutes. She stood up, stood at the end of our table, and just like told us to get a life. Really didn't like that we had beards. That was incredible.
Now I'm having an AM beer. Just to get over the
You got to calm our nerves.
When we do our top 10 moments of the year.
That's
number one.
This could be number one.
This
is a very early and strong contender.
Yeah.
I haven't even played a game that came out this year yet, and
that's my game of the year.
Getting yelled at by some lady by herself at Coney Island at 11 a.m. on a Sunday. Oh, anyways, let's talk a little bit about what Sour Grapes Games is. It's a website that we created a while ago, and we kind of slacked off.
Yeah.
We've rebooted it a few times.
And we're kind of doing that again. This is the time it's going to stick, right?
Yeah.
We promise.
We're all committing.
We're committing. We bought a mixer, so we have to do it. Yeah, we're all financially invested now, so we got to do it. And yeah, on the website, I think regular content that should be out soon at the time of recording this podcast. We'll obviously have this. This is hopefully will be a weekly dealio where we'll talk about kind of news and games, what we've been playing, new releases, that kind of stuff. And then we have some videos that I think will roll out soon. We have one called Beating Bad, where we're going to play through critically
poor games.
Yeah, poorly received games. First series we're going to do to that is Star Wars Obi-Wan on the original Xbox.
I'm a big fan of this game.
Yeah, we're a little divided among
it's
the
a
group.
divisive game, we'll put it nicely.
It's bad. I'm not saying it's a good game. It's basically the story of the Phantom Menace from Obi-Wan's perspective, but obviously he doesn't do a ton in that movie, so they just shoehorn in like a lot of missions. And its voice acting is just abysmal. But it's a game like I remember liking growing up in like the early 2000s when it released. Back when I thought licensed games were
the bee's knees.
Yeah, the best type of games you could play. It's
I love Star Wars.
Yeah,
it's got Star Wars on the box.
And I recently picked it up again. It's on the original Xbox, playable on 360, I think. And
yeah, it definitely is. Maybe
I replayed it a couple years ago.
I doubt it's comparable.
No, it's not. It's not on Xbox One.
I think there's a lot.
There's only like 10 games on.
Yeah,
that or Xbox
Maybe.
One.
It's like Knights of the Old Republic
Xbox,
and 2 and
Ninja Gaiden Black.
Fusion Frenzy.
Fusion Frenzy was the other one I was thinking.
Not the likes of Star Wars Obi-Wan. To make the cut.
I've been talking this game up to Scoot for a while, and he's itching to play it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're gonna sit down, play through it, talk about it while we do it. We'll probably just be videos will be the gameplay and us voiceover. You won't have to look at us.
Our ugly mugs.
Yeah.
Our beards on our faces. Whatever this
is.
is.
And yeah, that'll be something. We'll make it into some bite-sized chunks so you don't have to watch like 3 hours of us playing it all at once.
It's longer than that, which is sad.
Well, yeah, but that'll probably be like 12 episodes to get through that game, something like that.
Probably like a 6-hour game.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right.
All I remember about playing that game is a lot of shapes. Like
it doesn't look
boxes
good.
everywhere.
It doesn't look good. I actually
like a bad Halo 1 versus Halo.
I think the thing that they did really well in that game is the way the lightsaber works is like it's one of the joysticks. So if you like push your I think it's the right joystick to the right, he swings the lightsaber to the right, like up. He swings it above, and then they have some cool force powers. They have like force throw.
Looks like dog shit.
Yeah, and this is the case. These are all the best pictures. Oh
my God.
So
that's the box art. That's where they're like, this is where it's really looking good.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the actual box art that's making it look like that, or that's the actual.
It's the game. It looks bad.
No, it's rough. I played
it's
through.
Gonna be fun.
I've probably played it the most recently, and I didn't play all of it. But
I think I played it after you. I think you gave it a shot first, and then I took it and played it.
It's a wild game. So yeah, we'll be playing that soon. That'll be up on YouTube and the website sourgrapesgames.com. And then the other series I think we're going to kick off pretty soon. We're going to go with Tutorial Territory, which is where we just play the first 15, 20 minutes of a game that just came out. So new releases, we'll sit down, talk over it. Probably be after one of us has played more than that and has like a better idea and some stuff to say. But
so is it the first 15 to 20 minutes, or can it be like any 15 to 20 minute look?
Oh yeah, I guess if like the first.
Are you counting
15,
like a big cutscene?
Yeah, I guess we could play with it a little bit, but it'll be early in the game when
like early gameplay.
Gameplay of the game. We'll probably skip like big spoilery stuff if there's like if we're playing Metal Gear Solid 6.
But like an appetizer.
That'll probably never come out. But yeah, we're not gonna just show a cutscene and talk over that. We'll play with it a little bit, but for the most part, it'll be the beginning of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and I think we'll have other stuff. We'll have reviews. I plan on personally doing some video reviews. We'll also have written reviews. I think that's pretty much sums up what we plan on doing in the next couple months
We're also
here.
open to suggestions. Whatever you guys want.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have other kind of bigger ideas, but
yeah, save those.
We gotta save those for when there's more of you listening at home. Yeah. You guys have anything to add that you want to do here early? Lists? We'll probably have some lists. I know Scoot did top 10 of.
Oh yeah, I wrote a little thing.
So that'll be up there.
2018.
We'll have more stuff like that moving forward. I guess we should probably do some introductions since this is the first episode. I guess I'm kind of overseeing this show for now, at least today. I'm Ed Ader. I do have a mixer, so yeah, I'm Ed Ader. I guess we're all kind of co-creators of this thing. I don't know. I don't really know. We don't have titles. Anybody else want to share their piece, their involvement?
I'm George Frizard, and also co-creator.
I'm Tim Slater, co-creator.
I am Scott Macheski. My real name is Scoot, and I am also a co-creator. 3 co's.
I think you need one more co, but that's fine.
We'll let it slide this time.
Some co's creator, multiple co's. And I think we're gonna jump off with just like really basic. What's a game series you really like? We can just go around. You'll get to know us a little bit. So anybody, George, you want to kick us off?
So one series that I actually recently revisited with the remaster on Switch is the Dark Souls series. I've played 1, 2, 3, Bloodborne, and they're some of my favorite games. I think that is just a really unique game style that many people have tried to replicate but never perfected in the same way. You hear every new ARPG come out. Oh, this is the new Dark Souls. This is Dark Souls. Same comment as Dark Souls, but really,
it's a genre.
It's a genre at this point, but I don't think anything really plays as well as that main series, and I really hold them near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
Software series.
Yeah, the whole From Software suite.
Even Demon Souls.
Demon Souls, I've never beaten it, but I've put a considerable amount of time into it, and that one is also very tough.
Yeah. It's a good series.
I think I'm the only one that hasn't played any of the Dark Souls or Bloodborne. Is that right?
Probably.
Yeah, I played most of Bloodborne, and I've played a handful of hours of the original Dark Souls. That's it for me, though.
I should probably get into that. Give it a shot.
I still need to play Dark Souls 3, but I'm a big fan of the original Dark Souls, Demon Souls, and Bloodborne. I just played Bloodborne for the first time like months ago here in 2018.
Yeah, you loved it, right?
And I think it's my favorite. Yeah, that and Dark Souls are close, but those two definitely are up there as my favorite games of all time.
Yeah, Bloodborne is almost an apex of the series, and the fact that it continues that same style but iterates on it in the biggest way since
Dark Souls.
Since it started, and it just works very well.
Yeah, a ton of personality in that game. The setting. I mean, not to spoil it, but the way you think it's going to be this kind of typical vampires and werewolves Victorian setting, and then the way that morphs throughout the game and becomes something else entirely.
Right, very dark, Lovecraftian. There's, crazy architecture, and there's stuff with moons and umbilical cords. All kinds of dark.
Pretty wild.
Yeah, it's a really cool story. And one thing that's like kind of strange about that series is like 99% of the lore is hidden, where you have to read item descriptions or watch videos on YouTube of people that have delved into all this and have basically built the backstory from all these different pieces throughout the game, and they're really interesting. It's cool lore, but it's something that you actually have to dig through to get.
Which, like, when those games first started to come out was such a huge risk because video games were going the complete opposite direction. It was like all these game developers were trying to make a movie in a game, and it's like, we want to tell this cohesive story that everyone picks up and gets. And
they also got a lot easier around the same time, like checkpointing every the scene that you're in and everything.
Yeah, this is more like community storytelling. You got to find the lore on, message boards like Reddit and just piece it together yourself.
And it's not the biggest fan base, but it's like the most loyal, like people that like Dark Souls, like everyone that likes Dark Souls, that's on their favorite games list. Like I know a lot of people that are like, I couldn't really get into it.
It's like feast or famine.
Or people that are like, this is a top 10 game of all time.
Yeah.
But I'm right there with you. Like, series is awesome. Tim, you got a series you're really into?
I'm going to go kind of the opposite direction. The series that I think I had the most connection to is probably the Uncharted series. I'm a huge fan of like Indiana Jones growing up, and it actually took me a long time to get into Uncharted. I didn't have a PS3 until more recently, so my first experience with them was when the remaster editions came out in the collection, and I just really got into them. It's great gameplay. The story's amazing. Characters are amazing, and that's really where I connect with games is character story arcs and just overall story. And the set pieces in that game are amazing. There's a lot to love, and it's like a game that was built like for my taste, pretty much is what it feels like.
Yeah, beautiful games too.
Yeah, that doesn't hurt.
Those set pieces are truly amazing. Like Uncharted 2, the intro scene on the train when you're
climbing off
of it,
it's falling off a mountain,
and even through the like asymmetrical storytelling where it starts at kind of the mid to end of the story, and then you backtrack through and see kind of how Nate got there. It has a really fun cast of characters. Sully is just like
it's really cool,
steals the show whenever he's on the screen. And
that series has matured in a really cool way too. Where one was basically just like a knockoff Indiana Jones story with like a pretty likable, snarky main character
and a MacGuffin.
And it's like this whole just kind of a contained story. It's kind of a globe-trotting adventure, and that's pretty much it. And then 2 is where it starts to like become about the characters themselves and their like ongoing story arcs, and then obviously a culmination in 4, which was a masterpiece. So
I gotta admit I haven't played 4.
Would you say 4 is your favorite of the series?
I feel like it is my favorite, but it wouldn't have been if you weren't so emotionally invested in the characters getting up to that point.
It's built on the backs of the other 3. There's so much.
I don't think any of them can live independently and be my favorite game. The series itself is where it really thrives. So I think that's
for sure one of the strengths of it, really building on itself, making the characters more interesting, making them feel real, kind of building the relationships.
It really does feel like a movie told in a video game
for
format,
sure.
like series.
I don't know if any other
game
series
has
that been as good
and
in that regard.
Yeah,
constantly iterating on itself in a great way. I don't know. That's the series that I'm.
I would argue the 4 Uncharted games are better as a whole than the 4 Indiana Jones movies.
What about the other Uncharted? I haven't played 4 or the other one. I don't even know. Lost Legacy. Is
that's surprisingly good.
I really liked Lost Legacy. There's a review on the site probably still. I thought it was really good. The only misstep for me was that they added a new main playable character.
Yeah.
But they didn't change the gameplay very much.
It was basically 4's game.
It was just a skin of Nathan, like a new skin.
It was a new story that was somewhat related to the main story, and that's really cool. They did a really good job with it. It was just if they were gonna ever iterate on the series in a major way, that was the time to do it, and they didn't. But it still fits. I think there is a place for it.
But it's kind of like it's not broke, don't fix it scenario.
Exactly. I think that's what they were kind of going for. Is they wanted to release it pretty quickly after 4 to.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was almost like DLC.
Yeah,
so it was like much more substantial than DLC. It's like a 10 to 12.
Right, it's a full game, but it's like.
I think it came out at $40.
But it was discounted at $40. Yeah,
it
was a triple.
It was definitely like a side
price
thing to 4.
Right.
I mean, it told its own story and all that.
You had to have played 4 to really understand Lost Legacy, but you could. Like if you didn't know anything about Uncharted, you could still enjoy it.
It was very interesting to enjoy an Uncharted game that didn't even reference let alone star Nathan Drake.
Yeah, I think they like
he's not in the game.
Is it a character that was like in 4 whatever? But then
it was
a character. The characters are in 4. One is introduced in.
One
4.
of the characters was introduced in 2.
Right.
Chloe, the main character that you play, was introduced in 2, and she was in 3 and briefly in 4. And then she is the star of Lost Legacy. And then the other character that's like kind of your Sully, your sidekick, is a character from 4.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. Is it after the events of 4?
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Cool. What about you, Scoot?
I'll just go with Metal Gear Solid has always been my favorite franchise. It got me back into games and around like the late 90s. I wasn't really playing much of anything. I didn't have a Nintendo 64. I saw a friend of mine playing Metal Gear Solid 1 and kind of reminded me of Die Hard, and that it blew my mind. I know the game, it has its faults. It's like 80% cutscenes, whatever, but
That's the best part.
The ridiculous like blending of like Die Hard action with like a crazy, smartly told story with like a bunch of crazy anime bullshit thrown in, but the best kind of anime bullshit.
Yeah.
And crazy over the top plots and
just like
fat dudes on roller skates.
Yeah, like how they went like way postmodern with the bullshit in Metal Gear Solid 2, and then just the return to form with 3. It's always been consistently my favorite series, even the newer one, which actually didn't do story that great. But
are we talking about 5 or Survive?
Phantom Pain.
Okay.
We'll talk about Survive. That'll be episode 2 of Cheating Bad.
Oh, that'd be fun. Does that game even have a story? I don't know what Survive is. I thought it was just a survival game.
It has a story,
right.
But I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
it might be interesting
maybe
to,
we can do that at
investigate.
some point. I don't know if I want to commit to beating it. It's supposed to be like a 30-hour game. Though.
No, fuck that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's Snake's one of the iconic characters. Not gonna play him in the new Smash though. We talk about it.
Right.
What's now a scrapped episode.
That flat ass snake.
Yeah, the flat ass snake.
Can't have that.
So yeah, I've only played 1 and a little bit of 5 of the Metal Gear series. I definitely am interested in visiting the rest of them. I definitely could see myself getting really into it. I also think Snake's just a badass, and I want to spend more time as him.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this series. I hadn't really gotten into them until I actually got a Vita and the HD collection came out. That was
2 and 3.
Yeah, 2 and 3.
And Peace Walker.
And Peace Walker, which Peace Walker is one of the best in the series.
I think Peace Walker is my favorite that I've played. I was also late.
You could make an argument there.
So I played both of those and then played 1 through like the PS1 Classic on the PlayStation 3 store. Also loved that. And then 4 just really blew me away just in terms of storytelling and kind of coming back to its roots and showing events in the first game.
Yes,
but
all the references.
All the references and kind of even up to the grand finale is just kind of an homage to the whole series. And I thought that was truly a 10 out of 10, Metal Gear Solid 4. And that was one that I picked it up without having played any of the series, starting with just 4 because it got straight 10s and I got a PS3 and I was like, oh.
You probably didn't even know what the hell was
going on. Yeah, I was like, I don't even know what the fuck this game is.
but it's still a testament to the...
4 was the first one I played too, and I fell in love.
It's so weird that you guys, that's the first one you play, but you still love that game because...
It was.
Well, I didn't love it until I went back and played the other ones and came back to it. And then I was like, all right, now I get what this whole thing is, and I'm much more into it at this point.
That game like had so much weird stuff too. I remember like being dumbfounded when I got to like a point in the game and it was just like, well, we got to download the next chapter now, so wait. Like,
and then watch Snake smoke a cigarette on the loading screen.
Ever. It was like,
and then the game's
watch
telling
a girl
you, the game's
cook
giving
eggs with Otacon.
Right, and then they're giving you tips like take breaks every take a 15-minute break every hour, like
so we can download the next update.
Right.
Yeah, it was like an excuse to have these like.
So they're giving you this advice like healthy lifestyle, but also showing an old like 80-year-old geriatric man smoking a cigarette.
And he's like the coolest guy you've ever seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a series that I wish I would have played more growing up because I've had trouble going back and playing 1 through 3. Like I got through 1 okay, 2 like I really like the games. I just like I'm really bad at them, so it's been a struggle for me to go back and like all those like tanky control games, like Resident Evil. I'm the same way.
Really hard to
I could see 1 going back.
The fight against who's the dude with the like lightsaber fight where you fight him in that like office area in 1.
Oh, Ninja.
Yeah. I was stuck on that forever. That game gave me fits, but I like the story a lot and the world building and all that stuff is really cool. And then 2 was sweet with how they just like completely
doubled down on all the craziness.
And like they made you play as a new character. It's like they created like one of the coolest characters of video games. It's like, you don't need to play as him in the second one.
Fuck that guy.
Yeah, we're gonna just do something else, but it like totally worked. And then 3 is like on my shame list of games I have never completed.
3 is amazing because it's just their take on a James Bond story.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like as much a James Bond movie as anything as any other one.
Yeah. And gameplay wise, that's like
one of the pinnacles.
Yeah.
I need to add all these to like my short list to get.
You got about 60 hours to kill for sure.
A lot more if you count 5. I played a lot of 5.
Oh, that game itself is almost 60 hours.
But yeah, I love that series.
Yeah.
All right. Zelda. I always loved that series. I'll take it back a little further. When I was thinking about this, I was torn between Mario and Zelda, but Zelda's kind of always held that, like, if there's a Zelda game on the horizon, that's the game I'm looking forward to the most. I think it's a strange series where, like, everyone has its own... Well, not everyone. There's some that kind of play back to older ones, but, like, a lot of them have their own unique personality, but they're all really good. Like, there's over 20 Zelda games, and I'd say the worst one to me was, like, an 8 out of 10. Like,
Spirit Tracks.
I didn't mind Spirit Tracks. I'd say the Oracle's games were down there on my list.
I thought that the Link's Awakening DX is one of the weaker ones.
That's like my second favorite Zelda game.
That's the handheld one, right?
That was the Game Boy.
Yeah,
that was like
one.
I like that one.
That was, I think, the third Zelda that came out.
That's the only one where Zelda has like a jump, right? Where you can always jump with him.
It's the most different.
Yeah.
It's like the most different Zelda game.
Yeah.
But
very, very strange game.
It's a series that I've played every game multiple times. I think there's Breath of the Wild came out last year, or now 2 years ago, and that was my game of the year. Thought it was flawless. I think, and completely new and fresh and different. The way they set up that story and that world, they can do something new and exciting every time, but still have that same feel.
It's weird.
The music is as good as music gets in video games, I think.
Yeah.
It's weird that this series has been going on for so long, and it's still one that revolutionizes video gaming every, 10 years.
Like, Breath of the Wild did a bunch of stuff where I'm like, oh, this is going to be in every video game in 2 years.
The climbing system was like, why wasn't this in every single open world adventure game I've ever played?
Right.
And then even Ocarina of Time was like, that changed the way 3D games were at the time.
And then they take chances too, because like they come out with Ocarina of Time, it's like the best game reviewed ever, and then like a year later they come out with Majora's Mask, which it's built on the same framework, but it's a completely
different,
like very risky,
weird,
different.
And
introduces the like time system,
which a lot of people hate.
Yeah,
it's very off-putting.
And you only have 72 hours to get through.
But it's like one of those.
Really.
Like, it was like almost the world's first roguelike. Like some stuff carried over, so it was like you had to like make these perfect runs, and then like you could open this door that is now permanently open.
It even invented the roguelike.
Yeah, so like that series has just done so much, and I've been a fan of it since I was like 5.
Yeah.
So I can't think of another series that I put above it. I really like Souls, and I really like a lot of other series, but that's got to be my number one.
Especially when it iterates on like a new system, like we were saying, Ocarina kind of revolutionized 3D. Like even in
the first open area
game. With the Link Between Worlds, when it was on the 3DS, it kind of was a reimagining in a way of Link to the Past, but it used the 3DS in the best way possible.
Right.
Same with Spirit Tracks, where you move with the stylus, and they kind of just play with all this hardware in the most
they do stuff
adventurous way.
Like because Nintendo always has these like gimmicky systems now. And somehow, like, Zelda games are still, like, really good, like, core games. But they're also, like, they put in these gimmicks that, like, only Nintendo shovelware has aside from this game. Like, like, it's like this thing that should be, like, super dumb. And you see it in, like, 1-2 Switch in Zelda. But it works so well still. And,
yeah, like, the core of those games have always been very traditional and old school. But yet they always
lean
iterate
into
it.
Nintendo
and they
hard.
lean into, like, the Nintendo gimmicks and new ideas in the best way.
Like Skyward Sword and using the Wiimote.
The Wii Motion Plus Wiimote,
and it was
in the best way that the Wiimote's ever been used.
And it's like you have to do it. They're not like you can figure out if you don't like this way. No,
use the PES controller. It's like no, you're using the goddamn Wiimote.
You're suffering through this 50-hour game.
Yeah,
but then,
and then you start using it. You're like, oh, I actually love this. Why didn't like any other developer figure out how to use this technology the right way?
That took me the longest to be like, okay, I get it. I really like it. Yeah, they take you, and then like you got Wind Waker, which like you spend so much time on the boat, and like now there are other games that do that, like Black Flag, and there are other sea-based games that you spend a lot of time on boats. But I feel like that was the first one where it was just like sailing was this huge aspect. Yeah, but it was really fun. And
before it was cool,
and
before Cell Shading was cool.
Yeah,
everybody
they did that too.
Everybody took a shit on Wind Waker when it initially.
They're like, oh, you could use the power of the GameCube to
now
make
they
something.
Look back on it and they're like, that's probably a top 3 Zelda game.
Exactly.
That'd be in my top 5 for sure. Like, and they just keep doing it.
That's the first one I played, and so I have like this soft spot in my heart for Wind Waker.
It's
just a really good game. Yeah. But yeah, I think that does it. Let's take a quick break. I just want to go back and listen to our audio because we've had some hiccups. This is like the 5th time we've tried to do episode 1. So thank you.
Yeah, do it right.
And we're back with the second part of episode 1 of the Sour Grapes show. We lost one of our co-founders. Just not like he didn't die, just for the rest of this episode. He's in the process of buying a house.
He was so excited with the prospects of where the site was going that
he figured he could
put a mortgage down payment down on a house.
More power to him.
Yeah,
I like
good
his
for him.
confidence.
Well, then he left us here to finish it without him, but
So
that's
George,
okay.
George is the one that's gone. Still have Scoot, Ed, and Tim here.
The Dark Souls guy is gone.
Yeah, Dark Souls fan. Not the only one, but the biggest one probably.
Yeah.
But anyways, we're back to talk about on the flip side, a series that everyone seems to love that either you just haven't spent enough time with, hasn't clicked. Maybe you do really hate it. I know mine, that's not the case. It's just a series that I haven't put the time into.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with mine.
And I kind of have two,
Mine's
but I'm
a
going to
little
go
bit of
with
hatred.
the opposite. You want to start then? You want to start with some
Give us
fire on
some-
this?
give us some
Yeah,
hate.
I feel
Yeah.
like mine's a super unpopular opinion, especially in this crowd. I've documented.
Yeah, I think you lost the only person that's going to support you on what I think you're going to say.
Yeah, I have a documented disdain for survival horror as a genre. Obviously, there are some exceptions there, but the one series that I'm going to call out in particular is Silent Hill. I know it's like one of the most critically acclaimed in the genre. I tried to tackle. I think I got like the Silent Hill 2 remastered edition when that came out on PS3.
Yeah. Well, that HD collection was not great. And
Yeah, that
HD
wasn't the best
collection,
way to play it.
I hadn't played them until like last year. Tried giving it a shot, and it just feels like shit. It doesn't like the atmosphere isn't good enough to make up for how bad it is. It wasn't interesting. I tried like 3 or 4 hours of that game and just didn't care to continue. I just don't see the appeal. Maybe it's just the time that I tried to play it. It was too late. The game aged too poorly.
I don't think those first few age that well, and those are the
Well, it's been a while since we've
Best
gotten
ones.
a Silent Hill game, so these are all kind of antiquated games.
I mean, like Downpour or whatever that last
that was
one
like
was
2012,
pretty
yeah.
modernized. That felt like a new game.
Yeah, I don't know.
It wasn't very good.
In general, there are a few bright spots in survival horror for me. Resident Evil 7 was a great game a couple years ago.
Have you played
really
the
liked
Dead
that.
Space series?
Love Dead Space. But those are great games with survival horror aesthetic.
Elements,
That's
yeah.
like those are like
as opposed to
Those
like
are
a
action
game that's
games
built
with
for survival horror. I feel like
Yeah.
built for survival horror games just never feel as good, and the atmosphere isn't enough for me to like stick with it. So I've tried like Amnesia. I've tried what's the other big survival horror?
Outlast.
Didn't care for either of those. Just I played multiple hours of them and just can't get any sort of I guess like I can't get any steam on it. I can't keep myself playing it.
Yeah, I'm not a real big fan of the new wave of survival horror games like the Outlast and the Amnesias where you're like helpless and you don't have no means of attacking. It's just constantly running and
I love those games.
hiding. Yeah, it's more stealth based. The Silent Hill series I forgive because I grew up with a lot of survival horror in the late 90s, early 2000s, primarily Resident Evil, even like the Fatal Frame and Clock Tower series. So I can kind of forgive a lot of the crappy tank controls and like the fact that
The
every
fixed camera stuff that gets really annoying.
the
and-
pre-rendered backgrounds, which
Yeah.
look nice, but you can't really interact with it. Yeah, and Silent Hill has a lot of that bullshit, and a lot of the doors are just unlocked, and you have no idea where to go, and you don't have enough items.
There's no helping hand. No,
Yeah.
like without a guide, those games can be.
Yeah, I can totally see that perspective.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like I love all those older games, but I do not have any interest in going back and like playing Silent Hill 2 again.
Yeah,
I absolutely do, but that's
Really?
just a matter of
Alright.
taste. Yeah.
I might
do
have just
not.
missed the boat on like. I
Yeah.
feel like you have to have gotten into survival horror when they played Best in Breed when they first came out, or at least closer to how games played at the time. And they're just also all the good ones are so antiquated now. I'm actually excited to give Resident Evil 2 a shot when it comes
I'm
out
really
this
excited
quarter.
for the
Yeah.
remaster.
So I'm
A
excited.
remake, I guess, at this point.
Yeah, I'm excited to check that one out because I've heard really good things, and I've tried going back, and I just don't care for the controls, and it's not enough to keep me invested.
I could see that. I really like Silent Hill 2, but I don't want to.
You're
I
done.
tried to go back and play Fatal Frame, the first one, and it was a chore getting through that.
That has a lot of fixed camera.
And like some of that too, like it seemed like dated graphics somehow make things less scary to me. So
Yeah, there
A lot
was
of those
the big
polygons.
part that I got
like playing
really-
something next to Resident Evil 7, like it's hard to be scared
Yeah.
by.
Well, Resident Evil 7 is definitely the new standard.
Right.
And I'm glad we all
and like
have a fondness for
Outlast 2 is like one of the best looking games I've ever played, and it was scary as hell. So like going back and seeing like those character designs in
that.
Silent
It's
Hill
just really
or-
dated.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
the sound is still really good and the moments are there,
Yeah.
but some of it's just like I'm just looking at shapes.
Yeah, I was really I got really frustrated in Silent Hill 2. Right towards the beginning, you're in that huge apartment building. They give you like almost no direction, and you're walking around and it's just straight pitch black, which like I get can be scary, but I wasn't scared. I was just pissed that like they didn't tell me where the doors were. You just have to go around and mash the open door button until like something happens a bunch of times. And I was just like, this isn't fun. This
it's
isn't
a thin
scary.
line
It's-
between feeling like helpless and just annoyed. In a
It's
video
not
game.
helpless because it wasn't like it was something I couldn't do. It was just like they didn't make it possible for you to know that you had to
Right,
do that.
you just
That
had
was
a
the-
trial and error.
That was back before games really had tutorials too, so I can understand it being this is a frustrating experience to try to
just figure it out.
figure out just what the hell to do. And the darkness and foggy elements of that game, those are kind of like shortcuts the developers
Yeah.
had to take
Well, I know
because they
the
couldn't
foggy-
utilize the draw distances.
I know the fogginess, and that makes sense, and that's not the problem. It was literally like you're in a hallway, and there was like a light every 15 feet.
Yeah.
But between those lights, it was pitch black, and there would be doorways in that pitch black that you have no idea are there unless you happen to hit the door open button when you're close enough to like have opened the door. And that it was just super frustrating. It left a really bad taste in my mouth. I think that was kind of what like flipped me because like I said, I was a fan of like the Dead Space games I'd played before that, and I was like kind of just getting into survival horror, and then I played like one of the most critically acclaimed survival horror games of all time, and was just like, man, this game sucks.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I'd argue that the Dead Space series, unless you like turn it up to impossible mode, is hardly a survival horror game.
Well, that's
Like there's horror, there's scary shit that happens, but like
Well,
It's like
especially
a
the
at
first
no
one,
point,
yeah.
at no point is it like super hard or
right.
you're not like inventory management is not an issue on.
Well, and they made a lot of smart choices with
Items
the
are
UI
not scarce.
and like the health bar is on the back of your character, and you could just click like R3 to give you like a
Where do I
waypoint.
go? Yeah,
I mean, it's kind of it simplifies it, but
It's
I
like-
welcome those changes.
I mean, I
Yeah.
love Dead Space. Is one of my
Yeah.
favorite games of the last
I-
generation, but
And I think Dead Space 1 was, it didn't have all the survival horror elements, but there were definitely some like pretty crazy jump scares and tense.
yeah, it was
atmosphere.
scary.
Yeah.
It was very.
It
tense
wasn't.
feeling.
I guess
It's
it
like
was
the right-
horror, but not
yeah.
survival to me. Like it's not a survival game in
Yeah, that's fair.
No.
any sense of the word.
I just tend to just bundle those together, like
Yeah,
survival
all
horror as
horror.
a genre.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like survival. It's an
'cause I would
action
say-
game with leanings of survival horror.
I would say that Resident Evil 7 wasn't really a survival game either. That was
No.
leaning more towards action as well.
especially the second half.
It was definitely a horror game, but it was definitely
like the first
not.
like couple hours maybe.
You're not banging your head against the wall for 2 hours trying to figure out that we're to find this stone to get this
To
ridiculously
open
shaped
the
key.
chimney
Right.
to like go into a basement
Right.
or whatever. Yeah, I could see that. I think that's warranted.
Yeah. I've wanted to get that off my chest for a while now, so
You want to go next because I'm trying to think of one I actually hate.
Okay, I don't hate mine. It's just a series I know everybody seems to love, and it seems like something that'd be right up my alley, but I haven't been able to get through it. Is Uncharted. I just, for some reason, Uncharted 3, I've started it probably 10 times, and I've never finished it.
I know we've talked about this a lot. You don't like playing as the kid. Like you don't like playing
I don't
young
mind that.
Nathan
Like I've gotten
Drake.
past that part every time.
In the third one, you mean?
Yeah, I've gotten past
Yeah, it's
that
like
part.
one early on mission.
I actually kind of like that stuff with the where you're like, that's where you meet Sully or whatever. I won't
Yeah.
spoil too much of it, but yeah, I didn't. I didn't love that part, but I didn't hate it either. There's just something about that game that I always get kind of worn out about probably 70% of the way through. I just turn it off one day and never come back. And then by the time I'm like, oh, yeah, Uncharted, I should really like these games and play 3 again. I have to restart because it's been so long, and the same thing happens.
So what is it about it? It's just
I don't know.
Too much like the combat's floaty because I know it can be a little.
It's
like,
a lot of the same too.
A lot of climbing towards like very linear paths, but
a lot of climbing, a lot of cover shooting.
I don't mind that. Yeah, it's the cover shooting. Some of those rooms just feel the same over, and I'm really bad about it. I'm getting a little better about it, but I'm really bad about like if I go back to play Uncharted 3, I more times than
like
not
3 is
have,
the one that
have
stops you in your
played.
tracks.
But I almost every time I've gone back to play it, I've played 1 and 2 again as well. So like,
that's kind of on you.
It'll be a
being, like,
1 week.
completist.
It'll be a 1 week period where I've played like 1, 2, and 2/3 of 3, and I'm just like, that's enough Uncharted for a while.
So it's
But I really want to play 4. I'm not in love with 3. I don't know what it is about it, but I don't love playing it. But I'd like to get to 4 and see what that's all about because people seem to really love that game.
more so for the story. They introduced the grappling hook in 4 and Lost
It's
Legacy.
essentially the Indiana Jones whip. Like, you can use it to swing around
sounds really
some
cool.
pieces.
Yeah, it adds some versatility and some verticality to
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
levels.
and that's how those games were for me. I mean, I like the first one a lot. I've played that a ton of times, but after a while, it kind of became like
That's the weakest one.
playing the game parts.
Well, it's the weakest one from a story perspective.
There's really no like great set piece moments too.
No, it definitely gets.
I mean, their like big reveal I thought was awesome in 1, and then like I don't know how 3 or 4 end up, but 2 just followed that blueprint in a little bit of a different way. But I thought the story in 1 was awesome because it set up like that. It wasn't just a Indiana Jones game, I guess. There was kind of that
It was spooky. It got,
twist. Yeah,
it got kinda
some of
creepy.
that stuff was really good.
That continues pretty well throughout.
Yeah, and it's exactly the
series.
same in 2, and I'm guessing it's the same way in 3 and 4. But yeah, one of these days maybe I'll do it. But for some reason, those games just didn't click with me the same way. They seem to, a lot of
Resonate with
you call
everyone
it your favorite series.
It's definitely up there. I'm staring at all the Uncharted games on my shelf right now.
A lot of people are in agreement. Those games review really well. And it's weird because I'll power through like 100-hour RPGs I'm not that into and stuff. But
I feel like there's kind of a stigma
for some
around
reason,
games
Uncharted.
that are like, especially you put a lot of pressure on yourself to like a game because you're like, this has everything I should like,
Right.
And then you start playing it, and then you're like, I'm not really feeling it. What's wrong? Like, what am I not getting? Maybe I'll step away for a minute and see if I have the urge to go back. And
I'm really
I feel
bad
like
about
it's
that
just
too.
certain
like,
games just don't there's games that I've played that I'm like, I should love this game, and then it becomes like a chore to play it and you don't enjoy any of it.
Yeah.
So it could every game's not for everyone. So.
Right. I'm going to give it another shot at some point, but that's up there for me.
I guess for me, I don't know how strongly the majority of the room feels about this series. And the last one wasn't even that critically acclaimed, but Far Cry. I've never even come close to completing one of those games. Like even the critically acclaimed ones like 3 and 4, and I completed Blood Dragon. That was probably my favorite, but that was just because of the kind of 80s aesthetic
And
just,
it was like nice and bite sized.
Yeah,
I feel
it was so it was much smaller.
it's like
game.
a few hours.
Yeah,
Or
but like
less than 10, I think.
yeah, and I've tried all of them. I tried 3 with Voss. I think I played the most of 4, but I don't know what it is. I just couldn't get into the hunting these animals to upgrade my pouch or my satchel.
Yeah, I could see that.
I got really into those games. The first one I played was 4, and I got the platinum like pretty quick in that game. Like, I played a lot of that game. And then I played all of 3. The only thing I didn't get for the platinum was you have to beat it on co-op, and the co-op story in that game kind of sucks. It's like a completely separate storyline, and it's just like levels of you just like mowing down enemies, and it's just not fun.
Yeah,
like,
very repetitive.
it's like it's super repetitive. There's not really a story that makes it worth going through.
There's no payoff for doing
Yeah,
it.
and then
Aside from a trophy, which...
I've played Primal. That game was okay. I don't know. I didn't get into the whole like.
I thought that game was like really fun, but I couldn't tell you what the story was
Exactly.
about at all.
It played like a Far Cry game without guns, which was refreshing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I did not get super into 5 though. I played through the story and did very little else. That game, I don't know, it just didn't feel as fun, I guess.
Yeah, I like the concept of going to each enemy outpost, kind of slowly tagging each enemy and figure out how you're going to go about it. But I never had the urge to complete all of them or 100% any of the maps or any of that.
I just really like the freedom in that game. Like, you can go about it literally any way you want. You can stealth all the enemies in a base, or you can get a grenade launcher and
Guns a-blazing.
Shoot everyone with a grenade launcher in the face. I thought that was really cool. The stealth, it plays really well. So, like, no matter which way you want to play, I think it will work for you. So, I don't know. That's what I liked about those games. But
yeah, I started with 2, and I actually really like that one, even though that's
the really
very
hardcore one, right?
Very different from what Far Cry has become.
I wouldn't
even like really go into that one. But I like 3 blew my mind when it came out because there wasn't a game like that. It played, everyone made the comparison, the joke that it's Skyrim with guns, and there wasn't really a game like that at the time. It felt like this huge open world RPG, but you also were playing a first person shooter.
Right.
Like, that was mind blowing.
The combat was actually fun, unlike Skyrim.
We could argue about Skyrim at another time. I've put like 1,000 hours into that game, but
you're saying it played well.
It played a lot better.
It wasn't
than Skyrim.
It wasn't just an open world.
It was a more action version
action
too, because it played a lot better, but their RPG elements were nascent.
Yeah, and that was before. Weak. And I used to be really into like all the Ubisoft series like that. I feel like they've gotten kind of bloated at this point, and they just put so much crap in those games.
They're just box checker games now. Right?
Yeah, they were then, but checking 20 hours worth of boxes with like 5 hours of that being story exposition
versus
was okay.
80 to 100 now.
Now it's like 80 hours with the same amount of story, and it's just like now you're spending way more time.
Yeah, the story.
Like the Far Cry 3 story was pretty interesting. Like Voss as a character was.
Yeah, that was also.
I always heard that. Yeah,
that was also like different at the time. Like there wasn't that crazy of a.
That was 4.
Pagan in 4 wasn't. He was basically just Voss. Like he was interesting in his own right, but like not as interesting in Voss. The character or the bad guy in 5 was like I wanted him to be really
5 was like the one I was the most excited for, and then I played like an hour of it, and then I read a bunch about it, and I was just like.
It had a great premise, but then they didn't follow through.
They basically were like, "Here's a cool premise. Do you want to play more Far Cry 4? But now there's fishing and the hunting sucks.
Do you want to play Far Cry 4 in shitty
Montana,
rural, boring America where we don't do anything with these cult characters, these cult figures? Yeah.
They're literally the same as the Outpost and all the other Far Cry games. The characters aren't like any different at all.
So, like, yeah, I think I played a lot of 4 and Primal and Blood Dragon and 3. And it's just a burnout factor at this point for me, I think. I mean, like, I do think there are some, like, missteps that they've made along the way. I'm actually excited for New Dawn, the, like, 5 spinoff or whatever where you play as.
Yeah.
It looks like it's going to be co-op based and a lot more colorful and fun,
and there's a lot of like weird overlap with Ubisoft franchises. Like sometimes it's hard to discern between an Assassin's Creed game and a Far Cry game. Now, even one's the third-person action adventure game,
right?
But it seems like they take a lot of ideas, like the towers, and
they're definitely very guilty of like borrowing assets from other games and I mean, they're a big company. I'm not saying that should be like not done. I'm just saying it's super. I don't notice it in many.
Their
games.
Lack of new ideas, especially in the last handful of years.
But I notice it a lot in Ubisoft games. I recently went back and played the King Kong game that was like a 360 launch title. And I noticed that like the reload animations in that are exactly the same as the Far Cry 5 animations. Like they have just been using that. And like I said, I don't really care. I don't think that's a bad thing. But there's just so much of that in Ubisoft games that it just feels like I've played thousands of hours of that game already, and I'm done.
Yeah.
I do plan on buying this New Dawn and hoping it's different. But
I'll definitely get New Dawn and I'll give it a shot. But I think Far Cry as a series needs to. One, go back to their roots and do like super exotic locations because that was what was working for them before. But 2, they need to change something to make it not just like a skin of the previous game in a new location. Because that 5, I think they tried to make it more like every other huge open world game and make it more about like the world building, and that's not where they thrive.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's going to want to play. The biggest flack for 4 was that it was just 3 in a new location.
Right.
So I think they need kind of a big idea to change that.
I don't
They
really
can't
like 4.
Yeah.
I even like playing through Primal. I think like both of your examples, Silent Hill and Far Cry, was like when the first big one came out, it was like this huge life-changing, like games weren't like that before, and then a lot of them have been since. So I feel like those are just things that it was a time and place thing, that why people love those games so much, and they're probably
and they're just reskinning and reiterating on the first game that changed, but not in any meaningful new ways.
I loved Far Cry 3 when I first played it, but it wouldn't be on the list of like if someone was new to video games, this is one of the like 100 games you have to go back and play. Like no, like it was awesome at the time, but if you really want to check it out, 5's probably a fine way to jump into that series.
It's like, do you give them the newest one, even though that's kind of a mediocre one?
Right.
But it probably plays the same as one of the great
but it
ones.
plays better, looks a little better.
Right.
It's
so
not
like,
much worse in any way. Which
and like
is
as
the
cool as
problem.
Vaz was, I don't think that story was. And they even are like getting really tired. They did that cool thing. Was it 4, the first one, where they did the thing where like you could end the game in 10 minutes if you just sat at the table?
I did technically beat 4 because I did do that.
And then they did that. I've heard there's a way to do that in 5 too. So they're just like recycling that crap.
I mean, that's kind of a cool, quirky thing.
It was a cool, quirky thing one time. They don't need to do it. It becomes less cool every time they do it. So if they do it again in 6 or whatever, it's just going to be like,
if they do it again at 6, it's just going to be a staple of the genre.
Yeah,
of their series. At
series.
least. I'd like if they did that with Assassin's Creed, because I'd rather
15 minutes of Assassin's Creed is a perfect amount.
Yeah, I'd rather play 15 minutes of Assassin's Creed than the 70 hours.
I really like those games.
I'm sorry, I should have said.
I haven't started Odyssey yet, but I've completed every other Assassin's Creed.
Odyssey,
except for those like Chronicles, like the Russia Chronicles and shit.
Those in China.
I haven't played those. I don't know. I don't know what those are. But I've even played like the Vita one, and I played the PS3 one that came out like 2 years after the PS4 came out. Rogue.
Legacy. Rogue.
I think it was just Rogue.
Assassin's Creed Rogue.
Rogue Legacy would have been fun though. That mashup. But yeah, I am not. I don't blame you for that one.
I'm curious what George's like.
George's is probably like Mario. He hates platformers.
He does hate platformers.
He's not coming back. He's dead to me.
Lock the doors. All right, so I think the thing we really wanted to do this episode were some New Year's resolutions, or I really wanted to do. I guess this was my idea, but some New Year's resolutions as far as video games go.
Yeah.
Just like maybe a bucket list game you want to scratch off this year, or a different way you play games, a different style of game you want to try out, or something like that. And I'll kick off, I guess, with one of mine. And it's I kind of just want to let not bad games, but games that aren't for me, I just want to stop playing them this year.
Just let it go. Just break up with
I'm
them.
really bad about... I'm bad to the point where I'll like take a 3-week break from games if I'm in the middle of a game I just don't like. It's like I'm just like, oh, I can't play another game.
So you think that's the reason you get into these kind of like gaming droughts? Is
every
because
time
of
I have a gaming
that
drought, there's like a game I'm just not feeling at all, but I feel like I can't move on to another game until I like... Well, I mean, I'll play more than one game at once, but...
Right, but sometimes you get overwhelmed because you have 4 or 5...
It's been rough.
...that you're not feeling
I'm not
strongly
feeling...
about any of them.
I don't love Red Dead Redemption 2, but I feel like with the critical acclaim and everyone talking about it, and it's like one of the best-selling games of all time, I feel like I have to see it through. I also heard the story gets really good.
But you've also heard our opinions on it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to finish that one, so I'm already cheating on my New Year's resolution, but... In the future, if there's a game, no matter how critically acclaimed it is, no matter how many people are talking about it, if I just am not having any fun with it, I just want to stop playing it.
And not feel bad about it.
And not be like, I really need to get... Like, I don't want to make video games a total job.
A chore.
I mean, I do a little bit. I'm okay with, like, powering through a tough section of a game or something like that. But if it's like, I'm not enjoying this at all...
Well, a lot of it's just a matter of taste. We're not all the same person with the same interests, so...
Right. Like, as much as I love Uncharted, I could see you just not clicking, and I would not be, like, offended, or... I don't it's not the right word, because I don't care. But, like, I wouldn't be like shocked if even someone like you who I know loves Indiana Jones and like likes video games a lot, if you didn't like it, I wouldn't like be shocked by any means, because it hits people different ways.
And there's definitely like cases where I've tried a game and hate it and come back to it like years later and then like Bloodborne. I've tried Bloodborne a couple times back when it came out and I couldn't get into it.
You're probably just in the right frame of mind
and
to
then
play it.
I
finally.
just played it a month or two ago and it was like, now I'd call it one of my favorite PlayStation 4 games. So there's a little bit of that goes into it, and there's a little bit of just like some games aren't for you. You don't have to play that game.
Sometimes there's the pressure too to
even if it's like a game you're excited for,
a game that's just came out recently, and you feel like you got to complete it to talk about it
especially when we're trying to do like a podcast.
Right. I was like that with Red Dead as well, because I played it later, and like I ended up going to a hockey game with some people from work, and like 2 of the 3 people I was with had beaten Red Dead, and I was probably played more video games than either of them, and they were like, "Oh, the ending," and I was like, "Don't fucking talk about it."
Right.
But at the same time, I was like, "That's like I was excited because I was glad that they really liked the ending, and it was at the time where I was kind of like you, where like I didn't really care about the story, and I wasn't having a ton of fun.
I mean, those are the best parts to me. It's just like, oh, it's such a drag to get to those story beats in that game. Yeah. But so yeah, that's one of the things I want to do this year. That's a little different. What about you guys?
I think my big one that I have been thinking about a lot is kind of like you, where I'm focused more on like things that come out. Like every big AAA game that comes out, I pretty much want to get my hands on and get into. And I let a lot fall to the wayside. So there are a ton of like really classic, really legendary, critically acclaimed games from like my childhood or like growing up that I just haven't touched, and I've been a little bit better about playing them over the last like year or two, but I really want to be able to like let some of the games that come out this year go if they're something that's not for me, and dedicate some time to like beating some games that maybe not I know I'll love, but like that I should experience. So like I've never played a 2D Zelda game, and that's like I don't even know how to say it. Like I'm ashamed of it as somebody that's into video games.
I wouldn't go that
far,
but
I want to experience that. I love all the 3D Zelda games that I've played. I want to experience that, and it's just something that like it's a little bit longer of a game. So I have to just dedicate that time to it. So
there's a lot of lulls too, like in the summertime. Not a lot of big AAA releases come out, so you'll have a couple of months here and there where you can catch up on your backlog.
But even if not, like I feel like I'm definitely guilty of that. Like getting Bloodborne in this year was hard. It seemed like because I was trying to play all the stuff that was coming out.
In like the middle of all.
But
the
it was
big
probably the
releases.
second best game I played this year, and sometimes I would have skipped that over to, force myself to play Far Cry 5, which is a game that
So that's the question. Do you force yourself to play a more current game that is more important in the scheme of game, like journalism, or do you actually play a classic game that you actually are enjoying?
I think it's almost more important to game journalism to have the experience of having played a classic game that everybody's looking back and referencing on that you haven't played, than missing one like mediocre modern
game
title
that we're all gonna forget about in 2 years.
Exactly. Right. So that's kind of where my mindset is. I definitely want to go back, and I got the SNES Classic for Christmas. So like there are a ton of games on there that I want to revisit. I think Link to the Past is going to be my first 2D Zelda game that I'm going to try to play through. So, and
the older games too are usually shorter, so that's always
that's
a blessing.
Be helpful too.
Yeah, I think in general, shorter games are definitely on my list too. Like I spend so much time trying to play like the Assassin's Creeds and stuff like that of the world. And
I could use a break from 60-hour games.
And like in the last couple of weeks, I've played like Into the Breach, Return to Obra Dinn, Donut County. Like those are all really cool games that came out this year that I feel like no one played, and I've beat 2 of them, and I'm pretty much on my way to beating a third in like 10 hours of playtime.
Like
George is back.
10 hours of combined. Oh, look who it is!
Do we have a house?
Yeah, put an offer on it, so we'll see what
happens.
Nice.
Congratulations.
We decided you were so confident about how the podcast is going, you just put a down payment.
You just ran out and
bought
bought a house.
Because we're just going to be raking in the funds.
Put it on the podcast company card.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
before we
Should we
go back into resolutions, do you want to go to a series that
Yeah.
you don't highly regard that maybe
that you hate?
hate would be nice, but
Disdain, or just I didn't do a hate. I should have thought of one I hated. Oh, well.
so mine was
I think Tim was the only one that did a hate.
mine was Silent Hill and like generally just survival horror as a genre. Ed's was Uncharted. Scoots was Far Cry.
So, I think one series that's kind of really fallen off for me is the Assassin's Creed series. I think that's kind of like
we're just throwing shade at Assassin's
we
Creed.
kind of lumped that in with the Far Cry
Yeah,
conversation.
and I think that kind of it's kind of like all of Ubisoft's new style games where it's just a huge open area, open world where there's a lot of stuff to do, but none of it's extremely interesting. And it's just there to be a huge time sink, check boxes.
They're growing and growing and growing.
It's just a distraction more than
things-
anything.
One of the things that Ed said was like it's 5 hours of story and like historically 20 hours of checking boxes, which is now 80 hours of checking boxes.
And the
5
crazy
hours
thing
of
is
story.
the level of production where they're able to put out an 80-hour box checker every single year. I could just stand an Assassin's Creed game if I got one every 2-3 years,
Right.
and I had a little bit
You
of a
wouldn't
break
burn out.
where I wasn't feeling like, oh, now I get to get into the world of this other assassin I don't care
You know
about.
how excited I'd be if I just like they could make the same exact game, like Assassin's Creed Odyssey could come out, and they were just like, but this one we're scaling back, and it's going to be 20 to 25 hours. I would buy that game.
Yeah.
I'd be playing it the day it came out in a heartbeat. I'd be so excited, but there's just too much crap to do in those games, and I don't know why, but I feel like that's the point of the game. Like that's what makes
It just gives you a lot.
Because the story
Yeah.
isn't interesting enough to keep you going for that.
Right.
In my opinion, I
Right.
I
And now
think
that
I
they've
skipped
made it,
all the cutscenes.
they've
in
added so much like
Origins.
RPG stuff that I feel like you kind of have to do that.
But
Like,
and
and that stuff's good. It's just there's too much of it.
they're podcast games. They're kind of just like brainless, just monotonous. You do the same thing over
Well, yeah,
and
that's
over
what
again,
I'll.
but it's like a
with
distraction.
those games, I'll usually do like side quests and main quests for like 5 hours, but skip all the like miscellaneous objective style stuff.
Right, like
And then
follow
I'll,
getting the
like,
question marks.
Bring
and all
out my
that.
other TV and throw on Seinfeld, and then do all the
Yeah.
bullshit.
Yeah, so
essentially.
it's a perfect game for you to watch a show that you've already watched 20 times
right,
in the past.
but it's not something that's...
But you don't have to require your full attention to either one. And it's just
It's not interesting enough on its own to completely take your full attention.
It's a fun,
perfectly
have a few
symbolic of the
beers.
modern age of just like half paying
It's-
attention to
yeah,
three different
right.
things.
It's
Right.
something that we've talked about.
I'm
being
surprised
a
they haven't
game
made
day
one
game.
yet where you like play with one hand so you can check your phone.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
Ah, that's coming. That's
gonna be
that's gonna be the DLC.
Pokemon Let's Go, Eevee and or Pikachu.
Yeah, you
is
can
like
do that.
You can do that with one.
I've been doing
It's-
that.
Actually, you can only play with one.
And
controller
Red
unless
Dead,
it's
I'll put
handheld.
on like the cinematic camera.
Yeah.
And just like
It's cool for a while, but
yeah.
Well,
Well, that way
annoying
you
part
don't
is
have
you
to
still
drive.
like you
Yeah.
still like run into people and stuff if you don't
Yeah.
watch out. So
Well, then I just turn it off. But yeah, I could see. I definitely have Assassin, just Ubisoft in general, fatigue in those open worlds because I've played up till Far Cry 5. I played every like game they've put out since Assassin's Creed 1, including like both Watch Dogs. I played all the Far Cries, all the spin-off Far Cries. I played every Assassin's Creed, including Unity and the Vita one, and like the PS3 one that came out a couple years after PS4 came out.
so
Rogue.
Odyssey is the tipping point.
Well, Far Cry 5, I guess, if we really want to.
Oh yeah, you did.
we wanna take Ubisoft
I didn't
as a
play either of those this year, and I don't feel like I'm missing out on all that
Right.
much.
Yeah.
my least favorite franchise is Ubisoft.
Yeah. They just need to do
I
something.
mean, they all feel very similar in that sense.
The
Where they
thing
just
is-
That's what we were talking about. Too,
one's
like
first
the
person,
overlap.
one's third person.
Right.
But they're the same thing. They just give you a lot of things to do in it, but it's not
and they're
interesting.
fun once you play. Like, I really like playing Odyssey. Origins. I wish they didn't name them that way. That's another thing.
That's the
but
thing that's weird too. Yeah.
They came out with Origins, and then this is Odyssey, but it's before Origins.
Yeah, it's like 500 years earlier, I think. I don't know the math
Proto
on it.
Origins.
But anyways,
know.
I really
Pre-Origins.
liked playing that game, and it was good. They just come out with too many, too frequently, and they never change the. I mean, they add stuff, but they really don't change the formula. And the changes they do make turn me off more than make me like like it. So
Yeah, you're never excited to be like, yeah, another 80 hours in
Like
a slightly
Origins,
different world.
I
Origins
remember
was
that.
slightly fresher because they like remapped the attack buttons and made it more of an RPG. But like outside of that,
But like adding Destiny loot to
Right.
fucking Assassin's Creed didn't make me excited to play it.
No.
It was like, what the hell? And now I got this
Now
stupid.
I have a fourth thing to worry about.
I think my next resolution is I want to boycott all console games that make you use a cursor in the menu. Like what? It was okay in Destiny.
Dota
and it
County
made
had
sense.
that.
Yeah,
if
I
you
know.
remember though, that was very strange. But
But you were in the menu for a second in that game. There wasn't
Yeah.
gear and loot to manage and
Assassin's Creed is like
shit.
the single player version of Call of Duty, where it's like, yeah, people like us are gonna be really just done with the franchise because we played it so many times, but
there are people that buy consoles for those games.
right, and that's
And
like
only
all they
play-
that's all they
yeah,
play
right.
is like, oh, it's November, it's time to get my
Yeah.
80 hours of Assassin's Creed.
Like
on.
our friend of the show, Nick Murphy. We call him the
Yeah.
producer. He doesn't actually produce anything, but he
Except for
he,
complaints.
he was like pretty bummed out that year that they didn't have an Assassin's Creed because he gets it for Christmas every year and he plays it, and
Like we plan a big day in January every year.
he only plays games that are over 50 hours for some reason.
Yeah. Well, he only plays games where you get to customize your character. And
Yeah. So like there are a lot of people like that out there, I guess, but yeah, I really as someone that likes to play like 50 games a year, I just can't.
It's not for that.
I
It's not
just
tailored for
can't.
that kind
It's
of
not
person.
feasible.
Yeah.
You can't play that and as many other cool, unique experiences.
Right, and I feel like we've all played that before, and just because
We've all had that
they
experience.
try to make it a little bit more like Diablo doesn't make it cool enough, new enough to keep playing those games. I say that, but I already bought this. I'm probably gonna play it.
Ooh,
at some point.
it's gold now. I gotta pick that up.
Yeah.
+2, okay.
Yeah. Let me
have
get
a-
my cursor right on over here.
George, do you have a resolution for this year in gaming?
My big resolution is to beat more games. I've realized over the last couple years that I've fallen into the habit of picking up games, playing them for 5 to 10 hours, thinking that they're cool or unique experiences, and then just kind of moving on without
You do
giving
this a
them.
lot with like new indie games. Like you're my go-to
Yeah.
guy. And I'm like, oh, here's an indie game I've never heard of, George, and you'll be like, yeah, I played a couple hours of it. That's really cool. Like he'll tell me to play it, but then
Yeah.
he'll have not played it
Yeah,
anymore.
and I'll
than
be like,
that
oh no, I
one
haven't
sitting.
touched it in like
You'll go
5
back
weeks.
in a month and be like, "Oh, we need to talk about the end to that game you told me to play." And he's just
Like,
like,
what?
"Oh, I didn't get past the second level."
Like I basically
That is
just come
true.
in, test it out, like I see what the game's all about, and I'm like, yeah, that's interesting and that's cool, but then I'll just move on to something else, and I'm going to actively try to not
take
do that.
a little bite of everything. Never finish the
Right.
meal. Yeah, mine was the complete opposite. I said I didn't want to stop forcing myself to play games that I don't like.
Yeah. Well, I think what George is saying is like it's ones that he likes.
Right.
It's like ones that he says this is a cool experience, and
Right.
then like
But at
Doesn't
like a top
continue.
level, his is beat more games, mine's beat less games.
yeah, that's fair.
Like mine's more quantity and yours is more quality.
Right. I need to stop forcing myself to play through a game that I've lost interest in an hour in, but I play 80 hours of.
Why do you stop playing them? Is it because another game came out, or
Usually like
or
I
just
think a few examples of ones I did that with this year are like I bought Into the Breach, I bought Dead Cells. They're like easy consumable games on Switch where I'll pick something up.
they're also hard as shit.
But they're
so,
hard as
yeah.
shit. Like
Yeah.
I'll get the mechanics of it. I'll see how the game plays.
Right.
But then it's like once there's another level of complexity where it's like I actually have to spend like 10 hours playing this game over and over again to really get good at it.
Just
That's
focus,
kind of
zero in.
yeah. That's sort of where I drop
That's
off.
another thing. Yeah, a lot of games like that, like it's hard to play in a casual setting, or like those are not games you can have like 3 beers and beat. It's like I need to be stone cold sober. I need everyone to shut the hell up. I got my headphones in, like, and it's hard to find time for that.
And then also like even with Red Dead, I didn't finish because it's a huge time commitment and I haven't really sat down for extended periods of time to play games in a while.
Yeah, it's one of those games where if you're not putting like 8 hours into it in a day, you feel like you didn't accomplish it.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you really need to on Sunday I'm going to sit down and play Red Dead all day. Like
Right.
you need to just kind of have that mindset going into it.
Yeah, the last time I played it, I played for like 2 or 3 hours. I only did main story missions that I got from like 22% to 24% of just the story part. I was like, how is that even possible? I did like 5 missions and I only got 2%.
Just ignoring everybody.
It was
All
because
those
I
poor
kept
strangers on the side
I
of the
kept
road.
accidentally firing my gun off. So then, like, right by the mission start, and then when you do that, the guy gets spooked, and it's like, come back later. You fucked up. I'm just like, God damn it. So I just walked around in circles for a while, and then someone's like, suck this snake venom out of my leg.
For the
And then you
fourth
shoot him
time.
on accident.
I
You
accidentally
shoot his
him.
leg off, and you're like, well, that's one solution.
And now I'm wanted.
Or you run into him with your horse,
Oh, yeah.
Always.
and then you have to pay a bounty.
Yeah, I'm always broke.
You have to ride your horse 50 hours out of the way to.
So all the
clear-
lawmen
yeah.
don't shoot you dead
Yeah.
for running over somebody with your horse.
Does anybody else have any other resolutions?
I guess mine is
Oh,
it's
we didn't
more
even
of
ask you.
yeah, thanks.
Well,
I really haven't touched much real-time strategy games. Mainly like the newer critically acclaimed ones are XCOM and the Civ series and Mario v Rabbids, which I played most of that, but I definitely fell off once the difficulty ramped up.
Yeah,
like
it got
chapter
really
2.
hard.
That game got
Yeah,
hard
I think
quick.
I got a little. I think I beat Donkey Kong. I got to the spooky world. I think I did about half of that, and then
I love the spooky world.
yeah,
Yeah, Spooky World was cool.
Spooky World got real hard though.
Yeah,
They're swinging those caskets at you.
yeah, that's when
That was one of my favorite games.
That's when
I
I
know, I
got
love
really
that game.
tempted to use. I think towards the end of that game, I used like easy mode or whatever the hell
Yeah.
that was.
I used that a couple times where it just
said,
like
"Fuck
gives
it."
you double
I-
health
Yeah.
right before
Yeah.
the level.
maybe that's my resolution too, is bumping games down to easy mode.
Like
If
not
I'm,
feeling bad about doing that.
I will fall into like a week-long depression if I have to put I put Wolfenstein, the new Colossus.
There-
that
I
game
had to
is
do that
ridiculously hard.
The very
It does
last
get
level,
hard, yeah.
I had to switch it down to easy because that last encounter before the big ending, where they just storm you
The
with
gauntlet
like
of
1,000
enemies,
enemies, and you're
yeah.
like, okay, like yeah, I have 2 guns and 700 ammo, but that's not gonna help me because I die in 2 hits and there's
And then for
100
like
guys around
70%
me.
of that game, you have half health.
Yeah.
You just have 50%.
Right, you just have to be like, yeah, I'm going in this with very little health. I'm just gonna have to really run and gun it. Like I
Yeah.
never felt stealth was a feasible
Yeah.
option. For the most
I need to
part.
be better about that
Into-
too because I did not finish that game. That exact
Right.
game because of that reason. I
Like-
didn't enjoy playing it, and then on
The
top
story's
of it,
so
it was
cool,
hard
though.
as hell.
Mhm.
And that's what I heard. It has awesome moments and all this stuff, and I was just like, but I don't want to do this. And for some reason, I never like occurred to me if I just put this on easy, I could play it like Doom.
That's
And
what I
it'll be
did
really
for
fun.
for Nier too, because I just wanted to get Nier Automata, not the original Nier.
Great
Just
game.
to
Who's my
get
favorite
through
Nier?
the story, because I couldn't wait for the next crazy story bit in that game, the next big reveal.
Well,
So
that game was pretty tough.
and it got pretty tough at the end. So
Yeah.
I just put it down to easy because at that point
The
it wasn't
RPG
about the gameplay anymore.
Yeah, the RPG elements in that game were super weird too. It was really hard
with
to
like
get
the
used to.
chipsets and
You had
Yeah.
chipsets
You had to keep,
that
like,
you could
taking
swap
them out, yeah.
and like the weapons really didn't ever. Feel
That game
all
could have
that different
like
to me.
The
really
weapons felt
benefited
similar.
from like a put in best chipset for where I'm at.
I think
button.
there is a.
Oh,
you
right.
can do
recommended
presets,
chipset.
but at the same time, I never felt any of them were that drastically different where I
Right.
wanted to ever change them. I had the ones that were
right.
give me 30% extra health, whatever
Right.
percent more damage with this kind of weapon. Okay, I'm going to use that weapon. And
I think
then
I
just
ended
kinda
up
set
doing
like that.
primarily movement speed ones because I was just like, I'm fed up with
Right.
getting around this desert area. I just want to see what happens next. So
I
I'm
mean,
just
the
gonna
game
sprint to
makes you
it.
literally replay almost
hour
the whole
worth.
game
you-
over again.
Like
If
I
you
know a lot of
play,
people I've told to play that game and they died on like the first mission like 45 minutes in and they're just like, I'm not doing it again.
Right,
Yeah,
because it doesn't
That
save.
first mission
I'm like-
is
I'm like,
very
it's really cool. Just stick
trial
with
by
it. And they're
fire.
like,
if you can't beat the
nope.
first boss, you can't play the game basically.
Yeah,
Well,
and there's no checkpoints in that whole damn
No,
thing.
it's like 30 minutes long to get to the main or the first boss, and then like you have to fight him.
right.
It did take me 2 tries. I think I died on the first time I,
died,
did
but
it.
you get one of those cool alternate endings. When
Yeah.
you die.
One of the
Oh,
credits
yeah,
just
right
scroll
away.
like 100
Yeah.
miles an hour.
Ending Y
I
or
did-
Z.
I think it was like W.
I don't think it was F. Yeah,
It
it
was
was
like-
towards the end.
Yeah.
God, that game was so cool in so many ways.
Yeah.
That
All right,
wasn't
well,
one of
that
them,
game will
though.
have its day in the sun on this show.
Yeah, we'll talk
But
about
I
that.
still
at
need to go
some
back
point.
and do B and C playthroughs. But
You have to do.
Oh,
B,
you have to
C,
do that
D,
now.
and E.
Yeah.
4 more playthroughs of that game?
Well,
Yeah, they get shorter.
They
and
get shorter,
Like the
but-
last one's like 5 minutes.
B is essentially as long as the first
It's
one.
essentially
It's
That's
a
the
replaying
little
hardest
bit
one.
shorter,
Yeah.
but
Replaying
C is a
the
lot
game.
shorter.
Mhm.
I think D and E, it's just alternate endings to
It's like
play.
30 minutes, yeah.
Okay.
Like you can just go through and jump in and get the
That
ending.
game
in,
was so
20
cool.
extra
But
minutes.
you're probably putting like upwards of 35, maybe 40 hours into the game if you're gonna
to get the other endings.
get,
Yeah,
like,
especially if you
most of the
spent like
endings.
I spent like 20 hours on that first playthrough alone, and then I spent
Yeah.
like
Yeah, I
half
think I
that
was
on the
around-
second one.
I think I got like almost half the endings, and then there was like one ending that's like 100% the game.
I just
and
googled
I
a
just
lot of
couldn't-
them.
I didn't
after-
like YouTube
a lot of them were
them.
joke endings, weren't
Yeah,
they?
Yeah.
almost all of them were joke.
It was like,
Yeah.
well, there's 26, so
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't have 26 like
killer
yeah,
endings.
amazing endings.
Like
think, like,
everyone
at least
after
10.
E was pretty much.
No, there was
jokey.
some. They were all definitely a little jokey, but there was some like actual like really depressing
Right.
ones, and like there was one true ending where you had to 100% the game to get, and like that was the like when I saw that existed, I was like, I'm not 100%.
Yeah,
I've
there's
already put
too
like
much.
60 hours
Right.
into this game and like beaten it 8 different ways.
Mhm.
God,
So
that
I
game was
gave
good. Yeah.
yeah. So that's my resolution. Not trying to power through a game when I'm not having fun, but it's like a game that has really good story or I want to see through to the end. Just flip that switch in my brain, knock it down to easy. Who gives a fuck?
Yeah.
And just
No
beat
one's
it.
gonna
Yeah.
judge you for that.
Right.
I have one that's kind of opposite of that, which is enjoyable that we've done a lot of this. Mine is like on games where I'm enjoying them, not necessarily about difficulty, but spend more time in the game. Like not necessarily 100% it, but like
Like, take
get
the
the
world
full
in.
experience. I fall into when I'm really enjoying a game because I'm really into the stories of video games more than anything else. I fall into a trap of just mainlining a lot of games that I play,
Right.
so I don't get like the full experience that the developers intended you to go through.
Yeah.
You didn't scan all those rocks in Mass Effect 2.
Not necessarily like to that level, but like doing a lot of side quests or like just
Yeah.
talking to people in the world or like just riding around and seeing the visuals. Like I think one of the games where I did really well with that is like Breath of the Wild because it
That game
basically forces you
forces
to.
you
Yeah, that
do
game-
You have to go out of your way to find the main story.
Right, the whole
Right.
experience
Right.
of that game is looking through the
But-
world, talking
Right,
to
And if
people.
you go there
kinda-
too early, you just get destroyed.
Right.
But that kind of opened my eyes to like
There is
how
a
you
benefit
should be
to that.
playing games
Yeah.
in situations like that. Whereas like Horizon Zero Dawn, I just did the main story for that, and I did nothing else. Like I did no side quests. In that
Oh, I
game
could totally see
whatsoever.
why you weren't so high on that game then, because that's definitely not just about the main story.
But like I was interested in the story, and it felt
yeah,
right to just jump. Like everything felt so like dramatic that they wanted you to keep playing the main story. So that's all I did. And then like after I beat the main story, I was like, well, I have no reason to want to stay in this world.
Yeah,
anymore.
some of the side stuff was definitely the highlight of that, and like in weird ways too. Like they did totally do some of the typical open world game, like go to this fortress and kill everybody there. But then like at the end of that story, it ended up being like this really cool thing if you saw the payoff, and not just from like a cutscene perspective, but there was gameplay that went along with it that was sweet. So like yeah, I definitely think, especially in worlds that you like and spend time with, that's one thing I'd like to like replay more games too that I really like, or even try games that I'm really enjoying on higher difficulties. Like I wouldn't mind, as that used to be the way I play a game. I'd find a game I liked, I'd play it 10 times, and I beat it on the hardest thing. And I'm
Yeah,
not saying I
right.
ever want to go back to that, but
well, yeah. Now
there's
now
gotta
that
be
we
a
have more
happy
disposable
medium.
income, it's like we don't have to keep replaying the same game.
Right.
That's
Right, when you're a kid, and you get 2 games a year, and
Right.
that's all you
Right.
play.
When you play 5,000
You can-
hours
you
of
can
World of
master a
Warcraft,
game.
Yeah.
so that's all you can afford to play. Yeah. I think like everything that was said is something that we probably all could use a little bit.
Yeah, I liked all those answers. They're very different, unique from.
I feel like we all
Everybody
have
else.
very different perspectives of what we want to do this year, which is probably a good
That's
thing.
good.
Yeah.
though,
Yeah.
No,
Nothing wrong with that.
lead into good discussions.
I think like it all meets in the middle though. Like
Yeah.
we're all guilty of very different bad habits and
Well, it'd be boring if we all
Had
did
the same habit.
Right.
right. You guys got anything else? I think I'm good.
I think I'm good.
Well, until next time, thanks for joining us on the Sour Grape Show.